Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are. My name is Laura Grandy Hill. I run our events and all of our customer webinars here at Treasure Data. We're very excited to do our second customer hands-on today, learning about our JavaScript SDK and how it interacts with Google and Adobe. It should be very interesting. With me, I have Michael Healy, who is our Senior Solutions Engineer, who's going to be walking us all through how everything works and new features and all sorts of good stuff that you need to know. Before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. In your GoToWebinar interface control panel, you'll see that there is a section for questions. At any point, if you have questions for Michael at all, go ahead and type them on in there, send it to us. We will be answering as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. But again, if you have questions during, please ask them. We are here to help. Okie dokie. So without further ado, Michael, thank you for being here this morning.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. We're excited to do this again. I know Jody did the last one about workflows, and this one's about JavaScript SDK. So we're excited to talk to everybody here who's on the line. So let's get rolling. So here's a brief agenda. We're going to do Treasure Data. We're going to do an introduction of us, what we are as a CDP customer data platform, just in case anybody doesn't know, or to refresh your memory. Talk about how we would deploy JavaScript directly on your site, how we would deploy it inside of Adobe DTM, how we might enrich that data with Adobe data. As well, we're going to actually cover Google Tag Manager, our content Affinity Engine, and we'll also preview our next time webinar, which is going to be really exciting and build on this particular webinar. So that's cool. Just to be clear, what this is not is Adobe Dynamic Tag Manager training or Google Tag Manager training. I know DTM a little better than GTM, and I can answer some questions, but I am by no means an expert on Google Tag Manager. In fact, I have to give a hat tip to my friend Robert Miller, who helped me with something last night on Google Tag Manager. And so that's kind of beyond the scope of this. So if you have a question that's specifically about the tag management solutions, I'm not the best person. This is not the best platform for that. So if you ask that, we'll kind of route you in the right place to get your question answered, but this is not to teach you how to use Adobe DTM or how to use Google Tag Manager, just to be clear. So this is me, the big giant photo that somebody took from me. I am a Senior Solution Engineer, as Laura mentioned. I work with very large enterprise clients to maximize the activation of their client data. There's my email in case you have any questions. I'll also show it at the end, just in case you want to touch base later.
And we can also include contact information in our follow-up email tomorrow, everybody, so make sure you get all the info you need.
So just to set expectations for everyone, I know we have a couple different profiles of people on here. The way we're talking about Treasure Data here really is as a customer data platform. And so it turns out Wikipedia, the source of all truth on the internet, has a really awesome definition of a customer data platform, which I won't relate to you. You can just read. This defines who we are as an essence. And so we're basically making it easier for marketers to segment, analyze, enrich, and then activate their data out using various tools. That's in a nutshell what we're very excited about. And so what this webinar is about, how do we incorporate the JavaScript SDK into that? And so just as a precursor, why is JavaScript important as an input? When we're talking about a customer data platform, might think like CRM or a tool like a Marketo is more important. Well, we're reading this awesome book called The Challenge Customer. It's around here. And they say that typically there's 5.4 people involved in a very large or enterprise level company decision. And what that means is that you're going to have people coming at you from different angles. They're going to be accessing information from you from different sources. They're going to be on your email list. They're going to be on your, they're going to be interacting with your salespeople. They're also going to be coming to their website. And so you need to be able to understand how you can interact with all these 5.4 people. Obviously, there's no 0.4. You round up or down, depending on it is. Hopefully, that's not something cut in half or something. But this is where we try to get to. We want to understand how we can work with people across both organizations and as well as across influencers. And so this is, at a high level, this is how we work with data. So we have first-party data coming from web. We have a mobile SDK, apps. We have CRM data we can incorporate. We have different types of offline database systems, a lot of different data sources. And then we can enrich the data and create profiles and segments and then activate it out. But a very important component of this is website data. Even today's day and age, people are very likely to come to your website in conjunction with these other components. And so how do we build a complete customer profile without web? Well, it's very difficult, if not impossible. So you need to bring this data in as a first-party data source. So why JavaScript? Well, it's just one out of many data sources, right? It is the de facto standard for on-site tracking. I have seen some other people on an edge case do something weird, but I would not recommend that. JavaScript's just awesome. We provide a handy-dandy SDK, which we're going to go through today. You can use it independently or inside a tag manager, which means that you can, in your enterprise, deploy it and upgrade it and make it very easy to use. As well, one thing we'll touch on here is Treasure Data is schemaless, which means the schema for the table is defined on input. And the real benefit for that you'll see here coming up later on is that if you want to use your JavaScript SDK and use it in a way which adds columns essentially to the database, that gracefully happens. And so this is something that doesn't exist in a lot of other tools, that we're able to add data to the calls on the fly, and we're able to incorporate data. And so this is really where we want to get, and as a preview we're going to talk about on our next webinar, is how to get to segmentation and predictive scoring, as well as activation through syndication for customers. We want to get to the point where we're understanding customers, whether you have subscriptions and you're trying to understand how do we churn, how do we reduce churn, so how do we identify those people likely to churn, or how do we identify those people who are likely to activate. The JavaScript solution is really just a piece of the puzzle that goes into your enterprise solution to drive this outcome. So what we're trying to do is build to this business outcome, which is to either increase sales, reduce costs, increase customer satisfaction. We're not about like a technology which is collecting data for the purpose of collecting data. We want to get to the point, help you get to the point where you're driving outcomes based on your JavaScript SDK. So let's take a look. And so, just like everyone else, we have a handy dandy little code snippet that you can shove into your header footer here. This is available on the website. Not a lot for everyone to cover. This just initiates the objects coming back from us. This is what gets placed just above your head if you're talking about an on-site deployment. And then for the to track a page view is very simple in JavaScript. And we're going to go through an actual coding exercise here in a second. But you basically create your treasure data object, and then you have to set a couple variables, and then you just click TD track page view. And what that does is it sends a page view data to the database called page views. And what is maybe one of my favorite features of Treasure Data is that if there is no database called page views, Treasure Data makes it for you on the fly. So if you're sending these to different endpoints, you can initiate different JavaScript objects here. You can send them to different databases depending on what you call there, and there's no database administration necessarily on your end in terms of data insertion. So you don't need to go in and like create this table called page views and start defining the schema and all this stuff ahead of time. You just pitch this over the fence. Treasure Data takes your hand and carry you on to success. So this is an awesome feature of the JavaScript SDK, which again I just do not believe this exists in any other tool. And then here I was talking about, let's suppose that you have some kind of page view that you want to, for some reason, track enhanced information. I've seen this in some other tools where for some reason they want to understand like this page view is actually related to e-commerce or is related to something of the other nature that you want to find. All you have to do is add those extra columns in here, and again, pitch it over the fence. Treasure Data is going to take care of you. They're going to add in this column foo, this column bar, and they're going to start putting those values in. So you don't have to go in and alter the schema of the table. It just helps you out along the way. So this shortens your time in terms of deployment of your JavaScript to enrich your data. So you don't have to spend time doing a lot of database administration. You can just update the code that you're sending to Treasure Data via JavaScript. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I love it. And as well, if you want to do like a server to server, we've had different clients who want, in the past, I've seen clients who want to do basically a server to server, or they want to send data in through different REST APIs. Again, super easy. All you have to do, send data in here. This is using a tool called curl. We have different libraries to send this in. so easy to do to send data in. So if you're trying to mirror data or do like a proxy server, it's very simple to figure this out. And so something else that comes up when we work with clients who are using a direct to their website implementation is that they want to track events. And what I mean by events are when you go to a website and you maybe click on a button or you hover over a button, basically any jQuery event that you could detect, and they want to send that data to Treasure Data. And so what you can do is create a listener, a key.track event, and then send your data that way. This is not hard. And so this is how I would do it if I were implementing your data directly on your site. For enterprise, I would typically say this is done. Sometimes we would typically do this through a tag manager where it's a little more repeatable and more of a templatized approach. So there's kind of pros and cons to going each way, but this would be the manual approach. And so something I'm super familiar with since I used to work at a company that invented it is Adobe Dynamic Tag Manager, also called Adobe DTM. So we want to spend a couple minutes now talking about how we would actually deploy this inside DTM, as well as enrich the data inside of Adobe. So the big point with Adobe is that we want to understand how do we connect our treasure data information to the Adobe data. You know, the Adobe data needs to be synced. So in theory, we're using Adobe Analytics. We already have a robust implementation of Adobe Analytics. We want to deploy treasure data in conjunction with Adobe Analytics for purposes of enriching the Adobe data, as well as exposing who the users are coming to our website. So Treasure Data sets a handy dandy _TD cookie, which you can call into a data element. We'll go exactly through this, and you set your EVAR. And let's actually go into DTM. Go click here. Treasure Commerce is our demo site. And so inside of DTM, in rules, data elements, so you grab a TD user ID. This is how it's configured. And so this DTM is really awesome, by the way. Very handy tool. So basically it grabs the value of this cookie and it makes it available to you to actually leverage it on the site. And so there's this create something called a data element, which is available on a JSON object, and says, hey, I want to, if there's this value _TD, place that value in a cookie, and read the cookie and place that value inside of the, technically it's inside the satellite object. And then what we do is, I did this so it would do on every page. And inside here, we have global variables. And so here, I just set, let's actually reset it. EVAR1 set as TD user ID, say EVAR, great. And so EVARs are basically variables inside of Adobe Analytics. And so what we have now is we've synced our data between Adobe and Treasure Data. So now we have both JavaScript libraries running on a site, but now we're in sync. So it's like the clap on when you see them making a movie. We're clapping the clapper, I think it's called, and now everything's in sync. So we have our Treasure Data ID synced with our Adobe data. So when we pull that out later, we can identify this and identify the user. And so what happens is this fires on every page, the way I've set it up, and it goes directly to Adobe. So in Adobe, you'll see a column called EVAR1, and it'll be your TD user ID. And we'll leverage that in a second. What we can also do is, if you so desire, in Adobe, again, it's not Adobe DTM training, but if you know Adobe DTM, there are different objects where you can do like click on link or dead header. Let's do dead header here, which is a dead header is something that's a header that doesn't actually navigate anywhere. It's considered sort of bad form. So what you can do is simply come in here and add a new script and then run your td.track view or td.track events. Here, I'm not spelling it right. And then say code while we label it, td call. And this has, again, there's implications on how you set this up. It's not a DTM training, just super simple example. But essentially what would happen each time here, you would actually call your event or call your page view, depending on how you want to route your data. And especially in an e-commerce scenario, we haven't coded that up completely for this particular one yet, but this is a demo site we're actually building out. So something like add to cart, you know, you want to keep track of your add to carts. I think I started this one here. There you go. So here, t.track event, cart add number 1. So you just throw that down in your third party, and it's fantastic. Again, it's tracking this event, it's going to add it to cart add, and then it's going to do the number of 1. So you can track your e-commerce events and so forth in here. So just real quickly, what this will, typically you will track this also in Adobe Analytics. I think I have this set up. Yeah, SE add is the Adobe Analytics. So we're really tracking the same information. The reason you would do that, certain places are interested in data quality and data validity in terms of making sure everything's lined up. So I have seen people deploy the same solutions in 2 of the same solution for the same tracking to make sure everything's getting captured. I wouldn't say that's common. A little more common would be the way that we're going to talk about right now. So we want to talk about Adobe Data Enrichment. It's something that we're very excited about. So we want to enrich all the data, right? Just get it all excited. And so what happens is that the data gets sent to gets sent to Treasure Data. And once it's in a table, you can actually just pull this in. And so maybe you have some Adobe data table, which is pulling from your data feed. And then we have our page views. And then we have, that's sort of the key, which is stitching these 3 together. And then maybe we have a combination of SFDC users and SFDC orders. So we're understanding users, orders, and web behavior. And that's going to be important for the next webinar, setting your data up like this, understanding behaviors and attributes. And so this would be the way that you kind of stitch your data together in a very simple way so that you're keeping track of who the individual users are across your systems. And let me see if I have here. And so that's how you would actually do it. But here at Treasure Data, we want to do things that are even better, right? And so what we have actually available in our tool is a Content Affinity Engine. And what a Content Affinity Engine actually is that it's a way to understand who is interested in which content on your website. And so this is something that's built into Treasure Data that I'm going to show you. If you supply the correct metadata when you're sending data to Treasure Data, you can actually create this model. There's very little coding required for you. Basically, it's automatically generated if you do the right sequence of events. If you first supply the right metadata, it tells you who might be interested in different topics, or it might be interested in different verticals or so forth. So this is an extremely powerful machine learning tool we built for customers to help them understand and identify which topics their customers might be interested in. So if you recall the 5.4 people who are coming to your website, a lot of times those are going to be interested in different things. One might be an IT security person, one might be a pricing person, one might be a technical person wondering how they're going to implement it. So they're going to have typically those 5.4 people are going to have different interest levels, different levels of interest in different content components. And so you want to understand, okay, this person is coming from, these 5 people are coming from the same customer or potential customer, but how do we, tailor our message to the IT security professional, for example? How do we make sure they're understanding what's going on in IT security, understand our IT security, and make them comfortable in the buying process so they're making a well-informed decision. And the way we can help you this is with our Content Affinity Engine. And what is the super awesome news is that Treasure Data by default collects all of these variables. If you've used a web analytics package, these are pretty common variables and so forth. If you want to use the Content Affinity Engine, the variables you have to get in are in bold. And so it's title, host, path, and description. Description. It pulls the description from the meta-name, so as long as you've got that on your website, it'll pull it in. And once you have all of those available, you run your machine learning model, and you kind of pull that in, and then from there, it will generate it'll tell you which person is interested in which relevant piece of content on your website. And so this is extremely important for people in both B2C and B2B, because even in a household, you'll have people interested in different relative segments of pieces of content. So this is something that's, again, out of the box, awesomely powerful for Adobe, for Treasure Data. And so that's how we would do it in Dynamic Tag Management. And this is set up on our site, and we'll follow up with some more information on this. Another tool which a lot of people use, of course, is Google Tag Manager. And let me walk through that real quick here, and then we'll talk about it. So Google Tag Manager, basically, I set it up two different ways, and we can talk about the differences between they are. The first way, what this is going to do is going to actually send data after the, it's going to send data after the call to the Google Analytics server is complete. So basically, it's going to call the Google Analytics server, and then once that's done, it's going to call Treasure Data. And so I'll show you where this variable is configured. There's another way. Let me actually walk through how it's set up. So in here, GA page views. So what we have is a way to kind of fire this page view. So here we're doing GA TD initiation. What this is going to do is fire this before and so forth. And then what we do is we reference this variable, Treasure Data page view. So you create a variable here, and then back in your tags, so you do GA page views. Let's prevent, actually took it out. Oh, wait, here we go. No, we're good. So that will actually fire it completely after each page. And there's a way to actually send it as well. I did the second one here. So you would actually, this is a better way to do it. What this will do is fire the tag in parallel with the Google Analytics tag. So it's not waiting for Google Analytics to complete its request. And I would suggest that as a better implementation method than for the callback function. Reason being, you never know, like Google is highly available, but not 100% all the time available. And so what you're doing there is just simply sending these two requests. So we're going to get your data and when at basically the same time as Google. And in particular, if you're a Google Analytics customer, whether you're, especially if you're a free customer, Google is very strict about sending personally identifiable information. So if you're a Google Analytics customer, then it's extremely important that you use our JavaScript SDK if you're trying to get down to the user level information. It doesn't quite, they're really not super happy about you sending PII information to GA. So if you want to get to the individual, personally identifiable information, definitely deploy our JavaScript SDK inside of Google Tag Manager, so you have it in Google, and then you can pull in your data from our Google Analytics connector. But like I said, to get user level information, if you're using GA, you have to deploy our tag and so forth. And then I think, let's see here, that's activation methods. I think we're on next time already.
Next time.
So I would encourage everyone to come next time, and we'll see if anybody has questions. But if you want to come next time and come and see how you actually activate this data, is where it gets really exciting. Again, JavaScript is just an input onto what you're actually doing, not necessarily the end-all be-all for what you need to do.
And next time, our webinar will be on an introduction to segmentation, predictive scoring, and syndication, like Michael just said, and it will be Thursday, May 3rd at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We will include the registration link in the follow-up email. So definitely hope you guys all can come to that. We've got some questions here. Keep them coming on in, and we'll answer as many as we can. Okay, here, we got just got back from Adobe Summit. They were talking about launch. How come you guys are talking about Adobe DTM and not launch?
That is the hard question right out of the gate. So it's a great question. I mean, we're excited about launch. I know the guy who's the product manager for launch, so we're excited about it in the future. I think that will be something we want to stay tuned on how that develops. And then, if you want to stay in touch with us and learn how we're going to leverage launch in the future, we can definitely do that. It was just recently released. And I'm not sure to the degree to which everyone's migrated yet. I've heard some people are going very quickly and some are not. The great news is that your code as it exists on a page is going to run in launch. So if you do something in DTM on page, it's going to still run in launch. But we see the value of a launch plugin that fully encapsulates everything.
Okay, cool, great. With the way that Treasure Data collects data, does it replace Google Analytics?
That's a great question. So I'd say in general, it doesn't necessarily replace your web analytics solution, whether it's Adobe or Google Analytics. People who are into web marketing really love their dashboards in Google Analytics and Adobe. They built these complex dashboards, and especially Adobe, there's legacy implementations that are very fine-tuned and complex, and people have been building detail onto them in some cases for, like 10 or 15 years. So that's a big ask to go in and tear all that out and replace it with Treasure Data, which you technically could, but they have their own pre-canned reporting layer, which is built out of the box, specifically focused on web marketing. So in general, those tools have a place maybe alongside Treasure Data for most companies. There are some companies we work with that are very advanced in terms of their visualization that they've developed internally, that they see the value in ripping out their web analytics package and just replacing it with Treasure Data. But in general, we see it running in parallel with tools, and we see it as a way to enrich data going forward.
Cool, great. Wanting to know, where should I find more info, and can I have your slides?
So you can definitely have the slides. And yeah, if you want to talk later, like I said, my email's here. I probably know a lot more about DTM than I do GTM, so I can point you into the right examples for GTM, and DTM I know more. Yeah, feel free to email me. We have a definitely great documentation on our website, which we can send to you if that doesn't get your answer. And if you have a specific question, let me know. And we'd love to talk to you clients about where they're maybe curious about leveraging the JavaScript SDK.
Great. So that's all the questions for now. If any of you have questions in the future, please go ahead and contact us. We'll answer them. We will send out the registration link for our May 3rd Treasure Data hands-on about segmentation, predictive scoring, and syndication. So we'll send that out. We'll also send out the slides so everybody can have them, and Michael's information if you'd like to follow up. But I'd just like to say thank you, Michael, for all the information. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.